welcome back to Microsoft Mechanics Live. Coming up, we get tips from Hacker-in-Chief, now the leader of enterprise security team at Microsoft, Dave Weston, to learn about how to defend against Windows-based attacks, also the most advanced threats that we're seeing across Windows and Office, and we'll deconstruct some real-world attacks and walk through some of the best techniques of defense. Please join me in welcoming back to the show Dave Weston.
All right, thank you.
Big round of applause, come on.
Thanks, everyone. So I'm super excited. We got really cool stuff to show you today.
All right. It's always great to have you on the show because your whole team is focused on penetration testing and also building security features across Microsoft services and the endpoints. We've got a lot of them here today.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the goals of my team is to sort of think like hackers, understand their techniques, because ultimately what we want to do is be able to understand how to defeat them. So in our typical day, we're taking exploits that maybe we found in the wild, deconstructing them, and basically looking at the operating system and figuring out the best way to mitigate those. So we might try to hack a forthcoming Microsoft product and emulate the way a sophisticated attacker would, maybe a cyber criminal or even a nation state, as closely as possible so we can make sure our products are resistant against their techniques.
All right, so what are the most common things that you're seeing?
So actually, in terms of common attack vectors, it really comes down to that age-old challenge of security versus productivity. So one of the things people love about Microsoft Office is it's incredibly extensible. So you can use features like macros that are available in Excel or Word to automate and cut down on repetitive tasks. However, that has sort of a negative potentially, which is at the same time, that kind of functionality can open up some large attack surfaces. So our intelligent security graph, which is scanning the globe across email services and browsers, has found over 400,000 different macro-related attacks over just the past few weeks. And so what we can really assess from this is bad actors really love macros. They're very hard to detect because they can persist in memory, and these exploits find different ways for users to be attacked. It's a very common technique called spear phishing, where you basically lure, through interesting content, a user into opening and running a macro. So let's walk through a few real-world examples. So this is actually something we've pulled out of our email detection systems, and this is pretty compelling. It's promising a lot of political intrigue. There's headlines from an election night. Maybe you're really curious about the content here, but as soon as you hit enable content to see more, which the lure is pulling you into, your whole machine is going to be infected and be able to execute code. So that'll be a bad day. And here's another technique, again, real world. How many of you would click on this? So there's a bunch of gibberish there. It's sort of indicating maybe there's a codec missing. And it's pulling you into saying, just click this enable content, and everything's going to be good. Everything's going to come into perfect vision. But of course, when you do that, your machine is going to get essentially owned.
But Dave, we're in a whole room of admins, a lot of group policy admins. It's pretty easy to just disable macros from running completely using group policy.
Yeah, so you could turn off macros, or you could move to the web or mobile versions, but then some of your users are actually using this for productivity. So just turning things off is challenging. And of course, macros aren't the only problem. You don't just turn those off and lose all potential attacks. There are all types of different ways that malware could potentially persist in Office files not using macros. Now, we do have machine learning capabilities that are available in Office and ATP that can run and detect and quarantine malware that's running in either file attachments or through emails. And we also have things like MDATP that will give you tips and tricks based on Secured Core, and it might point you to use things like Conditional Access or safe attachments to try to stop these attacks. But no matter what we do, these things are not always perfect, especially if you're dealing with an advanced adversary who might be employing something like a zero-day exploit and really is dedicated into getting into your organization. So we've always got to continue to improve security and hunt down these types of exploit techniques to stay ahead of advanced attacks.
All right, so why don't you show us how we can stop some emerging Office attacks first?
Cool. So I'm going to show you some real-world malware that's actually been anonymized. So I'm going to switch over here. And we're going to run into a VM, of course, running nested virtualization. We're simply going to sign in. And what you can see here is a very common scenario. I've got a bunch of trusted files and photos and things I care about on my desktop. And I'm getting an interesting email here. So it's saying, hey, Dave, find out there's an authorization here for your mortgage. Maybe I'm going through a house buying spree. And I'm very curious about what's in here. So I'm just going to open the doc. And of course, we're going to see the really common scene here, which is Office is opening this in a protected view because it's outside of my organization. And I'm simply going to click Enable Editing because I'd like to be able to deal with this authorization form and maybe edit it and make some changes. I'm going to dismiss this UI. Things are coming up here. And
looks good.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things you immediately see is what? All of my desktop icons have disappeared.
Uh-oh.
And so if I click on them, the reason that's happening is all of the content's been encrypted. And of course, now I'm prompted, all my personal files are encrypted. It's telling me I need to figure out where to get a Bitcoin. Maybe it's 2 in the morning, and I can't just run to the latest convenience store, and I've got to install Tor to deal with this. So it's a pretty bad day, and this malware is actually called TeslaCrypt. It's a real-world attack.
And I've actually, I think, been attacked by this in my household, so this is something that's real. It happens all the time. Well, it's really malicious, and this attack, like you said, it just needed the user to opt in. There wasn't even a macro loaded in this case. So what do you do to protect against something like that?
Well, something my team has been working on is actually a feature that we call Defender Application Guard, and we want to extend it to Office. So we actually first launched this back in Windows 10 for browser-based products. And it worked by basically running an untrusted browser and all of its sessions and processes in a virtualized host. So it's a tiny version of the Azure hypervisor shrunk down and made lightweight to run on your desktop. And the concept is any code that runs in this container stays in the container, and it's blocked from accessing any network resources, so it's fully isolated. And of course, this is available in the new version of Edge that we're just been announced. And this approach has actually been super successful. Using our intelligent security graph and our bounty programs, we actually haven't seen any in the wild exploits escaping WDAG with Edge. So of course, now we want to extend this technology to Office. So we're announcing AppGuard for Office. And the concept here is if you open any untrusted document, it will simply run in the container and have the same exact security properties that you get from virtualization.
All right, so why don't we try the same exact attack we saw earlier, but this time with Defender Application Guard turned on for Office.
Absolutely. So we're just going to log in here. And again, we can see almost an identical situation here. So we've got all our photos and documents on the desktop. And again, it's saying, Dave, open this up and fill this out. So we'll open. I'll kind of clean up the screen here, make sure you can see what's happening.
And now part of the important part here is we've done a lot of work in terms of making sure that the state is kind of thoughtfully thought about in terms
Absolutely.
of being able to save the files, do all these things. And you can see that there's no business bar.
Absolutely. So what's actually happened here is there's no need for a gold bar because this is actually running in a virtualized container. So even though the look and feel looks native, you can actually see from this icon that this file actually came from an untrusted source, and it's being fully isolated. And what's really happening here under the hoods is we've actually spun up, almost instantaneously, a separate lightweight VM, and we've used technology based on things like Windows Virtual Desktop and RDP to actually run these things. So what's actually happening in the background that's hard to see, but I'll show you just a moment in Windows Defender ATP is processes are spawning up. This application is actually searching through your file system for things to encrypt. But what you can see here on the left-hand side is so far nothing's happened. And eventually, just to prove to you that we actually ran real-world malware here.
And that spawn process is also coming up in the container, right?
Absolutely. But miraculously, and the super cool part is, my files on my desktop are totally cool. Nothing's happened to them, even though this worked perfectly.
All right, so we got all the admins in the room. How would we turn this on?
So it's actually quite easy. So we are going to make this available in things like group policy, and you can see here in the editor, those options are available now. But you're going to need a future version of Office that will be shipping in the near future that will make this work. The other thing that you can, of course, do is onboard all of your user machines to Defender Advanced Threat Protection, which will allow you to use an agent to monitor all of these potential attacks and get visibility into what's being contained within the Application Guard container.
All right, so why don't you show us then what it looks like in terms of setting this up as a SecOps admin effectively within Defender Security
Absolutely.
Center.
So what you're seeing here is the Windows Defender console. And we can actually see suspicious behavior has been observed. This is a spear phishing attachment. We can actually scroll down here and see all sorts of things. So correctly, we can see WinWard spun up. We can see it open the authorization form. We can see something called pbrush.exe, which sounds not so scary, was actually detected as ransomware, TeslaCrypt, you can see that, and then CMD and other things were spawning. Now here's where things get really cool. So let's say we're curious about where else did this Office document happen in our organization. So we'll click on it. We can see it was actually detected potentially as interesting. We can see 6 machines in the organization had that, all contained within AppGuard. And if we click here, Open in Office 365, we're going to seamlessly be thrown into the Office 365 Security and Compliance dashboard, where we can see, based on volume over several dates, how often this document came in. And here is a really awesome thing. So we've contained all of this ransomware as attachments. We can simply highlight where the attachments still exist in email boxes, go to Actions, hit hard delete, and it's like it never happened.
Right, it literally goes into your OST files, even if they've been cached on your system. This is an Exchange Online feature. and basically pulls them right through from their inboxes so that they don't get affected by that same malware.
Absolutely. So we both contained, detected, and remediated the threat completely.
All right, so we saw then with Defender ATP, WDAG was actually able to take an equivalent of a digital fingerprint. You saw pbrush.exe, which again sounded very tame, but it knew from the fingerprint of the process that it was actually running TeslaCrypt. Then you're able to go deep link again and purge that file from people's OST files directly from the Security Compliance Center, so pretty cool stuff.
Yep, and one of the cool things is if you happen to find a security issue in WDAG, we actually have a really strong bounty program. So if you find an issue in a specific component of WDAG, we'll give you $30,000. If you combine that, which you're likely going to have to compromise, with a Hyper-V exploit, based on, which is what WDAG's based on, you can earn up to $280,000 from Microsoft just for responsibly reporting that vulnerability.
All right, so we've shown some pretty powerful tools and what you can do in terms of protecting yourself. But as an attacker, wouldn't I just go and kind of either take own or disable the process so that I don't get impacted by this stuff? Yeah,
for sure. One of the things that red teamers and attackers like to do a lot is deal with these very powerful protection tools. So detection tools like Defender or Defender ATP are so powerful and give so much visibility, the first thing you want to do is tamper them so you can cover your tracks.
All right, so how do we then defend against kind of disabling these tools?
So we have a really exciting feature that we call SystemGuard Runtime Attestation API. And what it actually does is it runs as a part of virtualization-based security. So when that's enabled, we actually enable a small agent that takes security measurements on the health of your operating system. And because it runs across the hypervisor boundary, again, using Hyper-V or Azure technology, it has very strong security and can't be tampered with even from a kernel driver. So if you're an anti-malware code developer and we give you this API, you can actually call it to see if your agent has been tampered with and then take an action. So with this capability, we can actually observe everything happening in the system from across this protected hardware boundary and either raise an alert or maybe trigger a failure in conditional access to create a zero-trust network if our agent's been tampered with. And what that means is any machine that's been seen as tampered, when it goes to access a Azure AD auth-enabled website or resource, access will be rejected.
All right, so you've got an elevated command prompt, it looks like, open here.
Absolutely. So the first we're going to show you is from PowerShell how you can simply run this report. So we're going to make a PowerShell command here. Just takes a second. We're calling into the secure enclave, and we're getting a health report on the system. And so a couple things we can see here is, one, we can see a bunch of GUIDs that are basically checking various memory pieces and making sure everything looks good. If you quickly scroll through here, and I'll show you, you can see audit, enforcement, everything is looking good. The second thing we can do is actually get a list of information on things that are available on the machine, so essentially security values. So if you scroll through here, you'll see a lot of things, but in essence, what we're seeing is the security level is very high. It's at 400. We've got secure boot enabled. We've got a TPM. We've got virtual security enabled. And if you're super geeky, we have a bunch of hashes here that you can match to make sure that your firmware hasn't actually been tampered with. Now, everything looks cool there. We can also just double check that from the cloud everything looks cool. So we can see here risk level, known risks. Just to show you I'm an honest person, you can see that my host name here matches the host name that we can see in ATP. And of course, because my device is healthy, I have full access to my email. Conditional access is not blocking me. So now let's put on our hacker hats. Let's pretend that we got admin level access to this machine. So what I have here is Process Explorer, and you can see MS-MP-Eng is running. So as an attacker, what do I want to do? I want to read and write process memory here, maybe cover my tracks, make sure I have full control of this before I start hacking the machine. So let's see, even as an admin, I go to create dump, and I get access denied, which is strange because I'm an admin. Well, we actually have a kernel level protection that says, hey, special processes on the system need to be protected from any tampering. And we call that a protected process. So as an attacker, the first thing I want to do is shut that off. So I'm going to go into my hacker toolkit here and use a tool called Mimikatz, and I'm going to load a kernel driver. This is going to give me the capability from my attack console here to simply remove the process protection and allow create process to happen. So if I call process protect, and I give it a process name, in this place it's, we'll double check here, MS-MP-Eng, which is actually the malware client, .exe. And then I do a remove. If everything went well, it actually removed the protection from my malicious kernel driver.
Okay.
So cool. So let's try that same operation again. I'll try to create a dump, which just proves I have access to all of the memory. If I do that, it works perfect. No access denied. So I've fully compromised this machine. Now, the question is what can we see from this? So if I go and run the same exact situation here, I'm going to run the script again. And if we take a look at the assertions, we can actually see, whoa, we are now failing. So you see that audit fail. So let's switch back into Defender ATP console, and we'll see what we can see here. So if we go to our SGRA alert here, and we take a look, we can actually see, one second, take a look at our desktop. We're actually seeing the risk level is now 3 active alerts from healthy, so that happened right away. And if we go down in the alerts tier, I'll expand this out so you can see it. A malicious driver was loaded, credential theft tool was detected, there was a malicious service named, and of course we can see protected process tampering occurred. Now, here's the really cool part. Not only have we, as an admin, been detected, and we haven't been able to successfully turn off the agent, if I try to go into the cloud, which is where all the cool data is, so I'm going to sign out here, and I go from this now unhealthy machine, and I try to log into a service protected by conditional access, we'll see what happens. So I'll fire that back up, go to outlook.com. I'll try to sign in here.
So you're just logging in with an Azure AD account?
Just logging in. Remember, I'm on a tampered machine. If all goes well,
or not well.
Bam, I've now been blocked from access. So we've taken a malicious administrator who has full control of this machine, who's tried to tamper our devices, and not only have we fully detected them in ATP from behind a hardware hypervisor, we've now blocked them from accessing any cloud resource.
Awesome, what do you guys think? Conditional access at work here.
This is true zero trust at the hardware level.
All right, so we've protected then the software effectively from within a hardware enclave. So if you mess with Defender or other AVs that are using that API, your whole machine then starts to fail cloud off.
That's right. So let's raise the bar a little further. As a hacker, and with a hacker spirit, I'm never satisfied without doing a new attack. So how many of you have actually left your devices in your hotel room? Or what do you think an attacker could do if they actually had access to those devices?
Maybe not just right now, but you've gone to dinner during the week or something, leaving your device in. Now there's things that you can do with that, especially if you've got no virtualization-based security running.
That's right. So what do you think could happen if an attacker just got access? Well, I'm going to show you. So actually what we have here is our victim PC. And this victim PC just has a Thunderbolt configuration that's potentially vulnerable. Maybe they haven't done everything they needed to do on the device. So I'm actually going to log in here. And because I'm a security professional, the password is test. So I'm showing you the password there, and we'll log in. And I've pulled up the device security page here, and you can see that core isolation is not enabled, which is another way of enabling virtualization-based security. And we don't have any standard hardware security supported. So now I'm going to relock the device, and I'm going to now show you something interesting. So what I've got on the screen over here, and hopefully you can see it, is actually 2 attack consoles. So on the left-hand side, I've got a very common tool that we call Metasploit, and it's listening over a network from a VM running in Azure that I have an SSH access to. On the right-hand side, I'm going to run a DMA exploit, or direct memory access exploit. How am I going to make that happen? Well, what I have here is a really special device that we call the PCI leach. And what that is an FPGA that you can get available on eBay or other online resources running open source code called PCI leach that's available on GitHub from a developer called Ulf Frisk. Ulf is really awesome. And what I'm going to do here from my attack console is I'm going to communicate to this FPGA, and it's going to turn itself into a fake-looking Thunderbolt DMA device, and it's going to use the misconfigurations to actually read and write memory, so I can do anything I want on this device.
All right, before we do that, let's prove that the login just won't work.
That's right. So I'm a very genuine person, so let's do test 1, 2, 3. You can all see it, and I'm going to fail. So this device is in a healthy state. So now I'm actually going to run DMA unlock.
Nice password hint, by the way, on that one.
Yeah, it's very secure. So I'm going to run DMA unlock, and I'm going to try to zoom in so you can see this. And
oh, you're on. Yeah.
Oh, so it worked.
Yep, you weren't
so
live
everything
Zoom.
ran cool. So now, folks, throw out a password for me.
Anyone?
All right, password. All right, let's go really hardcore here. It doesn't actually matter, but I'm going to prove, again, I'm a genuine person here. Password. Boom. So not only have we removed the password on this machine, but as you can see on the left-hand side, I've got an interactive prompt. So now I've snuck into your hotel room. I'm going to leave. I'm going to unplug the Thunderbolt access to this device. And what I'm going to start doing here, and I'll try to make it so you can see, is I'm I'm going to actually start accessing the file system of this device. So I've just cd ... Now I'm going to dir, and you can actually see I can view the directories here. So I'm going to cd into users. I'm going to cd into the test. I'm going to dir again.
There's the 3 files, or hold on, they're going to come up on desktop.
Oh, I can't spell.
It's all right, you got to spell.
DRR, so we can see secrets.bmp, super secrets there.
Yep.
So let's first make a directory just to let Jeremy know I've pwned his machine. So make directory pwned, you can see that comes up on the screen.
All right.
And maybe I'm a mean person, so I'm actually going to rm your secrets.bmp, and you can see
it's going to remove, okay.
So I've actually left your room. I could be on the other side of the world. I only needed a few seconds of access here. Now, what I really want, though, is I like Jeremy so much, I want to get a picture of his face. So I'm going to run what's called webcam snap here. I'm going to ask him to pose for a selfie. So we can actually see webcam snap is there.
I don't know what's scarier, a picture with me, or there we go.
So we've got
this
a selfie.
Attack. Okay.
So now the question is, as the attacker, can I make this work? So I'm going to grab the image that I've just written on my SSH, and I'm going to SCP that over here. Copied it over, and you can actually see, unfortunately, I couldn't get Jeremy in here, but we were able to take a full picture. That
Remote
is a great
control
picture.
it. I
We
couldn't
might have
quite
to take
get
this
in
one
frame.
again.
Maybe next time. All right,
Maybe
let's keep going.
Time.
All right.
All right, so we've actually shown that just from a few seconds of hardware, not with misconfigured hardware, we can actually fully compromise the machine remotely.
All right, so this is a terrible attack. How would we protect against something like this?
All right. So we're actually going to log into my machine here. This is a device from HP that's actually what we call a Secured Core PC. So it's got everything that security-wise that you'd want out of the box. So I'm actually going to log in, and you can see that this HP Dragonfly has memory integrity turned on. It's got memory access protection. It's got firmware protection. It's got everything that would make it a Secured Core PC. And you can tell, if you actually tab into device security here, I'll just show you that the device meets or exceeds extended hardware security. So,
there he is.
If I take my same Thunderbolt here, I lock the device, and I try to repeat the same attack without unplugging any HDMI cables, which is a hard thing.
There we go.
We'll pull in I'll get rid of this ugly selfie. We will try to run the exact same attack. DMA unlock's running, and what you can see is nothing's happening, and it might be blocked. So because this system has the right hardware, it's actually blocking any new malicious DMA devices from being initialized on the machine when the device is locked, which is very valuable, and we fully protect it against
All
this
right,
type
so let's
of attack.
zoom out of this one just to show it's going to probably time out here in this case.
It will time out.
Yeah, so what do you guys think about that? Now it can't actually hack us. We can't take an awesome photo. What do you think? All right. So, scary stuff. Don't try this at home, kids, because these attacks can really lead to complete compromise of your Windows and your Office environments in this case. So these are things where you can actually protect really these machines, the computers that we see here. You can enable policy in newer builds of Windows 10. If you're an AV developer, you can use things like System Guard API. That's available right now. But what are some things that you'd recommend for folks to stay more protected compared to this machine here?
So there's a couple things I would recommend. First is you have so much power in your desktop, whether you're a security professional, a desktop admin, a systems administrator, but you have to turn these security features on. If you don't have these things turned on in your organization, you're leaving yourself vulnerable, which can be just as dangerous as clicking on malware itself. The second thing is keeping your systems up to date, not only in terms of security updates, but in terms of the latest versions. What you're seeing here is the power of being able to run the latest, greatest hardware and Secured Core PCs, along with the best and newest versions of the operating system. So if you want the best in hardware, you can check out aka.ms and Secured Core PCs. The last thing I'll say is Microsoft actually makes a super secure version of the operating system that my whole team spends tons of time tuning and hardening, and it is called S-Mode. What we just introduced is the ability for you to take any Win32 app from across your app estate, from across your enterprise, sign it, and deploy it directly from Intune onto an S-Mode device. So when you combine best of hardware with best of software, you can make sure that your whole desktops are locked down to just the trusted processes and applications that you want.
Really great tips. And of course, the race is never over in security. And we're going to be here to cover it on Microsoft Mechanics. Thanks again for joining us, Dave.
Absolutely.
And of course, please subscribe to Microsoft Mechanics if you haven't already. That's all the time we have for this show. We'll see you next time.
Thanks, everyone.